pizza thing is lying on the floor. So, Mr. Smith, did you think you'd be such a celebrity? Yes. One little visit to City Hall, and all of a sudden
this was a radio.
Yeah, well, it is, but they're recording this for the news as well. Now, I think they're going to have you sit over there, Jamie.
Yep, we're going to have you right
Thank you for coming. Have you ever been in a radio station before?
No, not to the best of my recollection.
You see, so these are all new experiences for you.
There you go.
Yeah.
I get to wear the headset, or?
Quite a day for you too, I'm sure.
Well, actually, no, I'd have to confess to not having spent a lot of time on this front.
You were working.
I had a job. I went to the meeting last night. I heard you on the radio this morning at 7 o'clock. You know, mentioning this thing. I thought, well, I never thought any more, but went to work, and I was out at lunchtime, and heard the radio for literally 5 minutes, and said, "My God, they're still yakking about this thing." And some guy, one of your broadcasters, said Jim Smith. So I called 872-1010 and said the name's John Smith. And the lady said, "Well, would you be willing to appear on our show?" And I said, "Well, I'm phone in or something tonight if you want." It's John Tory show. That's just behind all this. So,
ready to go in 30 seconds?
Simple as that. Am I supposed to wear this headset? Or?
You don't have to put those on because we're not going to take any phone calls. But
all right, great.
Okay. Actually, if you want to hear what they're going to play, you might just, because you'll hear a bit of the encounter, just put those on. And you'll hear a bit of the encounter between yourself and Miss Fletcher.
Okay.
You hear okay?
Should we cut Transit City so they can't get down from North York and Rexdale and Malvern? Is that your suggestion? Is that your suggestion, all right? We're all down here by the John Tory show.
News that matters to you and conversations.
That was the voice of Councilor Paula Fletcher, who's going to come on later in the half hour and wants to, while Mr. Smith is here, say her own word of apology. She wrote a letter today, which was read at the City Council, apologizing to Mr. Smith, and I would say I hope to other citizens too, because he wasn't the only one that was treated disrespectfully, but we'll let him speak for himself. John Smith is here. Now, Mr. Smith, I want to ask one of those questions you sometimes see in the courtroom cases, where I wanted to simply ask you, you and we've never met before, and I don't think we even shook hands last night. You got up to speak.
Frankly, I didn't know you were there. I saw you in the lobby when I was walking into the, to get to the council chambers. I didn't know you were
on the premises.
In the council chambers. I sat there for 2.5 hours or so waiting for my turn. You know, I think it was the last or second last person to speak, so I left shortly thereafter, and it was only this morning on the early news that I heard you talking about being there.
And because the councillors suggested, some of them, that I had sort of put you up, that you were some long lost relative of mine,
one of
my best friends,
you paid me
or a
to be down
secret
there
agent,
or something like that. And I thought, well, as I said to her, I actually walked there. She accused me of
going in a limousine or
something like that. And you know, the fact of the matter is that I didn't listen to your show yesterday. I left from the office about 6:15 or 6:20 and walked up to City Hall. I was only aware of this meeting because about a week ago, when I did hear your show, you mentioned that there was a public meeting with regard to the budget at City Hall, and I thought, you know, an individual ought to make an appearance there and express a view, because if you don't go out and share with council what you think the priorities are, and I don't think mine in terms of the need to actually lower taxes or hold the line on the tax increases, those aren't views that are unique to me.
Absolutely
but
not.
All they'll hear from are their friends and colleagues who might have a different view, and so everybody needs to get out, frankly, to these public meetings and share their perspective.
So I asked you if you'd met me before. You said no. I asked you off air if you'd been in a radio station before. You said no. Had you ever been to the City Hall before?
I'd been in the lobby of City Hall. I can't recall
like
what
to pay a bill or something.
I can't recall what the occasion was.
But you've never been to the council.
I've never been in the council chambers before.
Okay.
I was struck going into the building yesterday. I thought, well, a public meeting, you think there might be a sign or two that gets you from.
Oh no, that would actually encourage people to show up.
You know that there's a meeting going on and how to get from the lobby to the third floor where it's being held. But no, there was nothing like that, and so you just kind of get there and sit down. And actually asked a gentleman that was sitting next to me after I'd been there 15 or 20 minutes. I said, how do you think you get your name on the list to speak? And he pointed to a clerk where I went over and signed, gave them my name and address and phone number, signed up, and then when my turn came up, they called me.
All right, so you stood up and you said your piece. Maybe you could just give a short summary for the listeners, because, I mean, I thought it was very rational in terms of the challenges you, like lots of other people, face in running your own household and getting these bills from the city that say it's never ending with the tax increases. But you say
well,
it in your own words.
I think as I said last night, the proposed increase, and at this stage it's still proposed, that's why they're taking input, of 4%. This is the second consecutive year of a 4% increase. I don't think I'm unique. I haven't had a 4% increase for 2 consecutive years, so it means that there's something else that my family's money is being spent on that's going to have to be redirected to pay a tax bill. This comes from a city that over the last few years has introduced new taxes. I'm just returning to Toronto after 4 years of living in Ottawa, and in buying my home, I found out that I'm having to pay many thousands of dollars in a land transfer tax. This is a tax that didn't exist back in 2000 or at least a few years ago. As was mentioned last night, there's a new vehicle registration tax that hits us all. So these things have taken money from, that would have been allocated to other things in terms of, as I said last night, I got kids that are post-secondary, I buy books, pay tuition, pay their accommodation fees and so forth, and something's got to give.
All right,
so I'm looking for the tax.
This is exactly what you said last night,
yep.
And you said it as rationally. I'll comment on as you're sitting here saying it to me. Were you stunned, or were you surprised, or did you just think this is the way it works down at the City Hall when you got the response you did?
Well, frankly, I was stunned. I was taken back. I thought that I was given 5 minutes to express my perspective, and I appreciated the opportunity. But I'm not a candidate for anything. This isn't an all candidates meeting. I'm not a rival of any of the councillors.
Are you a political person?
Frankly, I've never met any of these councillors. I know 2 members of City Council who I've met in years gone by. Neither of them were there last night. I was surprised that there were only about half a dozen councillors there. I didn't know any of them. And the fact that they took me on, and other members of the public who were there, that Councillor Fletcher, the first thing she throws out to me is a suggestion that we should cut the kids' breakfast program at school. And I think, well, in a business world where I work, when cutbacks need to be made, if you propose the most critical activity that the organization is involved in delivering as the place for the cut to be made, you're generally shown the door.
Exactly.
And they'll bring somebody else in who's a little more creative, that can find some ways to identify less impactful ways of cutting back. And
well, I want to tell you when we come back, we're going to check on traffic for 60 seconds about some of the ideas that I've had emailed today in response to what happened to you by people who work in the City Hall. We'll talk about that in a minute. At 6:15, my guest is John Smith, who was the taxpayer that was the subject of all the abuse last night. It is 6:15, time to check on News Talk 1010 Time Saver Traffic, and Guy Valentine is staying with the gardener.